Welcome, I'm Brad Pomerance. We are coming to you from the nation's capital, Washington, D.C. We are joined by Devin Nunes. He is a member of the United States Congress representing the beautiful portions of the Central Valley, central area, although it's been very tough, very tricky times right now. I know your family is in farming. Talk to me about what it's like on the ground for you, your family, your constituents during this water crisis, this drought.
Well, Brad, we're used to the water crisis because we've been living it basically for my entire adult life. And it's really one of the reasons I first ran for Congress, because I could see as a farmer and somebody who was actually drilling wells and continuing to rely more and more on groundwater, that bank account was going to run out someday. And because the state has not been using the infrastructure that was built starting at the beginning of the last century, they've essentially shut that infrastructure off, and now we're out of water.
And I want to talk about groundwater because I've spoken with some of the members of the California State Legislature, Connie Conway, Anthony Cannella, and they have talked about how there are areas where the groundwater basins have literally created what's called subsidence.
That's right.
Where they've just kind of collapsed on each other, and you can't recharge them. If there's subsidence,
and it does permanent environmental damage. So a lot of the water that's been, actually all of the water that we have not been using and being flushed out to the ocean, that's water that is supposedly going to protect the environment. Yet there are no measurable benefits that all the water we've flushed out over the last 20 years because of environmental regulations to protect the delta smelt, okay, which is essentially a bait fish. All that water has had no impact on the population of the smelt or the population of the salmon. But what's happening is there's permanent environmental damage being done in our part, which is a small part of the state, but a very important one. It's really the breadbasket of the world. It grows
salad bowl.
It grows over 300 different crops. Growing up, I mean, my family, we've grown almost everything over the years.
But
and
you know, the delta smelt has become kind of a lightning rod for so many and so much of this debate. But the question becomes, what can be done on that issue? I mean, the courts have been very clear that they're protecting the delta smelt. I mean, what does California do?
So Congress wrote the law. Congress needs to change the law. So if the delta smelt is supposedly a threatened species, I actually even have a disagreement with that. But the populations of the smelt go up and down. The populations of the salmon go up and down. What we are doing, what the court is doing to the people in my district trying to protect this fish is not helpful. It's not helping the fish, and it's doing permanent damage to our communities. We have farm workers out of work. We have the highest unemployment in the state. We're doing permanent, long-term environmental damage. I can go on and on of the fairness and really the stupidity of all of this. So in the House of Representatives, to answer your questions, we actually have changed the law. Not only this Congress, but last Congress we passed a bill to change the law. And unfortunately, the Senate, the U.S. Senate, has done nothing.
But your friends on the Democratic side would say that while there may be need for some reform of environmental regulations, that the laws that are being proposed, they're trampling on states' rights, which is an issue that, you know, purportedly is more of a Republican concern than Democratic concern. And so we're kind of in this, you know, this pissing contest.
Well, because obviously there's one side that is telling the truth and one side is lying. So I'll leave that up to the viewers and the people at home to decide. But anybody that comes in here and argues about states' rights either doesn't know what they're talking about or they're a useful idiot to the cause. Because the issue with states' rights has to do, every single federal law, the entire Central Valley project, every dam in California, that's all federal government that has imposed itself on the state going back for a century.
When we come back, I want to talk about dams. I want to talk about storage. So much more to talk about with Devin Nunes. He's a member of the United States Congress. For our viewers on HLN, thank you for joining us. For our other viewers, we'll be right back. So, sir, let's talk about dams and storage, because that obviously is a very significant issue that's being percolating, if I may, throughout the state. As you know, I know you're in the federal Congress, but there is a bond that will likely be on the ballot come November, and there are competing bonds. The Democratic bonds have maybe $1.5 billion for storage. Republican bonds about $3 billion for storage. Where are we on the question of storage?
Well, for the most part, it's a lot of lip service because the money is not as important as being able to actually construct the projects. The projects could be paid for by the water users. This is not the old days where we need these projects for flood control. This is all about people who need the water, need to use the water. So whether it's $1.5 billion or $3 billion, it's really irrelevant as to, are we going to do things like they do for football stadiums and basketball arenas, where conveniently they go in and waive CEQA, waive the environmental rules. Because even if we could get to a point where we could actually begin construction, we'll never get a dam built for 30, 40, 50 years. I mean, we'll be long out of water in my area before that ever happens. So this is really about politicians paying lip service to the bond, and really the bond money is irrelevant at this point without actually clarifying and fixing some of the environmental regulations.
So what do we do today?
So
right now, even, if storage will come or it won't come, we have a problem today.
Well, real simple. On the federal side, the House has passed a bill. The Senate has done absolutely nothing. So the House bill fixes most of the problems. We'd like for the Senate to pass a bill so we can come together so that we can allow the current infrastructure to work, the pumps to run, and other onerous regulations to come off the books, so that we really focus about delivering water to people and to protecting the environment.
If the bill did pass, let's say, and was signed by the president, would it help the problem today?
Absolutely it would. We have today, as we speak, water that is not being captured that 7 years ago would have been captured. And in the meantime, we have cities that are running out of water. On the state side, we should treat these water projects, since water is the most basic part of life. We need water. It's water and food, but water first.
Sure.
If the state legislature is willing to waive the environmental rules to build football stadiums and basketball arenas, they darn sure should be willing to do it for a few water projects across the state. 3 water projects would be very, very helpful. One, right above Fresno, Temperance Flat, Upper San Joaquin River. The second one would be Sites Reservoir, and the third would be Raising Shasta. Those 3 projects, combined with making the federal law so that the pumps and all the infrastructure can work as they were engineered to work, we would have not only not have a water problem, we would have a water surplus.
How quickly could that happen?
The Senate could pass our bill today if Senator Feinstein or Senator Boxer would take the bill up and try to pass it.
But do you need that federal law, or can you go to the state and have them start to build up the Shasta Dam as you described?
No. That, as it relates to the legislation that we have pending in the federal, that's how the federal and state works in conjunction. The federal laws are really what are hammering and stopping the current infrastructure from operating. So that has to pass.
What's your sense of Governor Brown's Bay Delta Conservation Plan?
I think it's all lip service. I don't think there's not much to it.
Because why? Be specific if you can. For our viewers, $23 billion project creating tunnels to try to resolve some of the issues.
Yeah, so there was the easiest and simplest, probably most useful project would be to build a canal around the Delta.
Right.
Okay, the environmental group sued on that. They'll never let it go. They'll never go forward. So what they did is they converted, well, let's do tunnels.
Right.
Well, why did they do tunnels? Because one reason, the environmental groups have not figured out a way to regulate the underground yet. So it was a way they could get from around the environmental rules. But the truth is that the price tag has continued to soar on this. They're really not necessary if we passed a federal law here that and allows us to use our current infrastructure, and then do like we do for football and basketball arenas, and make sure that the 3 dam projects that D-A-M,
got it,
can be built.
So
we did that, and that would be state legislature.
Where do we stand today? I mean, look, you have Democratic colleagues in California that are recalcitrant on this issue. What do you do?
Yeah, well, I think what you're seeing is the policies that they've passed for the last 40 years that have really been implemented over the last 20. Okay, so it started in 1973 with the Endangered Species Act. 1992 was the first big water takeaway that passed out of the Congress. What they've done now that they don't want to own up to is that they've ran the state out of water.
Okay, will you come back?
Sure.
His name is Devin Nunes, member of the U.S. Congress. My name is Brad Pomerance, and we are coming to you from Washington, D.C.